Imagine the faint glow of dawn settling over the Isle de la Cité. The year is 1625. The bells of Notre-Dame hum across the Seine as market stalls creak awake, their canvas roofs shaking off the night's mist. The narrow streets, still slick from an evening drizzle, carry the scent of wood smoke, damp stone, and fresh bread being pulled from communal ovens. A horse's hooves clap in the distance, echoing between timber-framed houses painted in colors muted by age and soot. You take a step forward, and for a moment the modern world vanishes. Paris, crowded, ambitious, restless, is alive beneath your feet. And here's the surprising part. Paris in the 1600s was one of the densest cities in Europe, so crowded that many homes leaned toward each other until rooftops nearly touched, leaving some streets in permanent shadow. Welcome to the Paris of the 17th century. Today, we journey into a century marked by transformation. The 1600s, also known as the Grand Siècle. The Great Century were the age of the early Bourbon kings. Henry IV's recent reforms had just pulled France from the chaos of religious wars, and Louis XIII now sat on the throne, guided by the stern and unyielding Cardinal Richelieu. Paris was not the polished metropolis we know today. It was a city of contrasts. Elegant gardens and aristocratic mansions stood not far from overcrowded slums and bustling, muddy markets. Here, guilds controlled trades, processions choked the streets, and church bells shaped the rhythm of daily life. It was a city of opportunity and tension, of ambition, poverty, artistry, and intrigue. And like all great cities, Paris was a world unto itself. Today, as your guide, I'll lead you through its winding streets. Together, we will walk along the riverbanks, cross its bridges, stroll its most storied neighborhoods, and meet the people who gave this century its heartbeat. Let us begin our tour where Paris began. We start at the Pont Neuf, completed only a few decades earlier. Its broad stone span, free of houses, is one of the marvels of this age. As we step upon it, look to your right, the Seine reflects a pale morning light, shimmering as barges drift lazily downstream carrying wine, salt, and firewood. Water sellers shout offers below, leaning perilously from wooden boats. Ahead of us stands the equestrian statue of King Henry IV, cast in bronze. Though the king was struck down by an assassin in 1610, Parisians speak of him fondly. Some still call him Le Bon Roi Henri, the good King Henry. Mothers tell children how he tried to ensure a chicken in every pot. He remains a symbol of stability in a century often lacking it. Notre-Dame Cathedral. Let us turn toward the Isle de la Cité, its ancient lanes unfolding like a maze. At the island's eastern tip rises the monumental silhouette of Notre-Dame. Its stones, darkened by centuries of incense and soot, seem to hold the memory of every coronation, every riot, every procession that ever passed beneath its spires. As we approach, you hear the deep toll of the Bourdon bell marking the hour. The air smells faintly of wax, and the footsteps of clergy echo across the Parvis. Pilgrims kneel on the flagstones, beggars stretch out hands in silence. The cathedral is not merely a building, it is a presence, an anchor for all of Paris. Here, outside the cathedral, crowds often gather to hear proclamations. Just a few years ago, on this very square, word spread rapidly of new tensions between the monarchy and rebellious nobles. Paris has always thrived on rumor. Anecdote, the narrow streets of the Cité. Walking westward through the island, we enter streets so narrow that two carts cannot pass without a quarrel. In 1607, chroniclers recorded a notorious market fight here between fishmongers and butchers. An argument over stall placement that escalated until the provost's men were forced to intervene. The smell of fish, tallow, and burning pitch hangs in the air as we slip deeper into the labyrinth. We return briefly to the banks of the Seine. The river is Paris's artery, its lifeline. It carries goods, but it also carries stories. The bookstalls. Look to the stone parapets. Booksellers have begun setting up temporary stalls, ancestors of the bouquinists you may know today. Their wares include cheap pamphlets, religious tracts, plays by Corneille, and illicit satirical sheets mocking courtiers. The smell of old paper mingles with the river's damp breath. A passing student from the Sorbonne pauses to haggle over a used Latin text. His cloak is threadbare, his shoes worn, but his eyes are bright with curiosity, the hallmark of this century's intellectual ferment. Laundry and river workers. Further along, washerwomen kneel on floating wooden platforms, beating linens against soaked planks. Their shouts and laughter lift across the water, mingling with the clatter of ropes and pulleys on nearby barges. Children run along the river steps, chasing each other in the morning sun. Their world is small, but full of life. We now cross the river into the right bank, the bustling commercial heart of the city. The Rue Saint-Honoré. Our first stop is the long, lively Rue Saint-Honoré, lined with shops that spill into the street. Bakers pull golden loaves from ovens. Tailors sit by open shutters stitching doublets. Apothecaries grind powders and herbs whose mingled scents drift into the street: vinegar, rosemary, sulfur. The soundscape here is a symphony of everyday life, merchants bargaining, dogs barking, church bells marking the hours, the constant murmur of a city that never sleeps. Les Halles, the great marketplace. We approach Les Halles, the great market of Paris. Imagine a hive, constant movement, dense and humming. Livestock bleat loudly nearby, vegetable vendors shout prices, fishwives argue over the morning's catch. Wooden carts rumble past, their wheels carving grooves into the mud. The market is more than commerce, it is a social stage. News spreads here before it reaches the city's official messengers. A rumor whispered near the butcher stalls can reach the Louvre by sundown. Sensory note. The smells are overwhelming: fresh produce, salted meats, manure, smoke, and humanity woven together into a scent that is unmistakably Parisian. Guild life. Everywhere you look, guilds enforce order: bakers, butchers, goldsmiths, weavers. Their signs hang from iron brackets above shop doors. Membership in a guild means protection and strict rules, rules that ensure Paris's economy functions with steady, if sometimes rigid, rhythm. We now slip eastward toward the Marais, a district undergoing a transformation in this century. Stone mansions, hotels particuliers, rise behind elegant walls. Their facades reflect the growing influence of Italian architectural styles: symmetry, harmony, classical restraint. Place Royale, Place de Vosges. We enter the grand square known today as Place de Vosges, completed in 1612. Red brick and white stone arches surround a manicured garden. Aristocrats stroll here, exchanging pleasantries. Their clothing is a world apart from the commoners: satin doublets, lace collars, embroidered cloaks, and tall feathered hats. If you listen closely, you may catch discussions of politics, poetry, or scandal. Cardinal Richelieu's policies are on everyone's mind, particularly his determination to centralize power and suppress noble uprisings. Anecdote: duel culture. This square was once a favored meeting point for young noblemen seeking duels, illegal but common. During the 1620s, Richelieu condemned dozens of duelists to death in an effort to curb the practice. It was said that one could measure a family's pride by how many sons they had lost to duels or to the cardinal's justice. The atmosphere seems calm now, but the shadows of honor and rivalry linger. Let us pause and look closely at the people moving around us. Clothing and appearance. Artisans and shopkeepers wear sturdy wool garments, leather aprons, and simple caps. Women often wear linen coifs, bodices, and layered skirts, the colors dictated by affordability. Students drape themselves in dark cloaks, ink stains marking their sleeves. The poor wear patched garments that blur into the muddy streets. Most Parisians bathe infrequently. They rely on perfumes or scented gloves to mask the odors of crowded living. Food and work. A typical meal for ordinary people includes bread, root vegetables, cheese, and the occasional bit of salted meat. Workdays are long, governed by daylight and the guilds that regulate each profession. Interactions and social life. Neighbors rely on one another. Doors often remain open in crowded alleys. Gossip flows freely. Public punishments, whippings or pilloryings, draw enormous crowds, as entertainment is scarce. Children play in the streets, dodging carts and stray animals. Their toys are simple, carved wooden figures, hoops, or whatever imagination provides. We leave the right bank behind and cross the Pont Saint-Michel, entering the left bank, long known as the intellectual quarter of Paris. The Seine glimmers behind us, its surface brushed by a gentle breeze. Morning light now reaches the upper floors of riverside houses, revealing wooden beams darkened with age and rain. The streets here widen slightly, though their stones are just as uneven. You hear a new rhythm, lighter, more hurried. Students rush between colleges, their arms filled with parchment scrolls and borrowed texts. Their cloaks whip behind them in the wind, and their voices, Latin phrases, heated debates, laughter, give this district a unique vitality. The Sorbonne. Ahead lies the Sorbonne, one of Europe's great centers of learning. Founded centuries earlier, it remains a place where theology and philosophy dominate. The facade is stern and unadorned, a reminder that knowledge, in this age, is something to be disciplined into the mind. Within these walls, professors deliver lectures that begin at dawn, delving into Aristotle, Aquinas, and the foundations of natural philosophy. There is no comfort here, only wooden benches, cold stone walls, and minds sharpened through argument. Students from all regions of France gather outside, discussing the latest disputes between theologians. Some speak of tensions rising between the university and the more progressive thinkers calling for scientific reform. Rumors of Galileo's troubles in Italy have already reached Paris, casting long shadows over scholarly circles. Cloisters and monastic life. A few steps away, the deep tolling of bells marks prayer time at a nearby monastery. Monks in dark habits move slowly across their courtyard, their heads bowed. The air smells of wax, incense, and damp cloaks. In the 1600s, monastic communities still play a central role, copying manuscripts, tending medicinal gardens, offering charity. Their presence is woven into the daily life of the left bank, their chants drifting through alleys at dawn and dusk. Human story, the wandering scholar. Let us pause near a small tavern where a young scholar named Etienne, no more than 18, sits hunched over a cracked wooden table. His fingers are stained with ink. He lives frugally, surviving on thin soups and stale bread. Yet he dreams of becoming a physician, a difficult path that demands years of study and money he barely possesses. Stories like his are common here, determined minds battling poverty in pursuit of knowledge. Some succeed, many do not. But their presence gives the left bank its restless spirit. Continuing southwest, the city opens into quieter, more refined streets. The great abbey of Saint-Germain-des-Prés, once surrounded by fields, now anchors a lively quarter. Its tall bell tower casts long shadows across cobblestones as clouds drift overhead, diffusing the sunlight into a soft, pale glow. The Abbey. Founded centuries earlier, this abbey remains one of Paris's most powerful religious institutions. Inside its cool interior, flickering candles illuminate golden reliquaries and heavy stone pillars. The smell is ancient, old parchment, cold stone, beeswax. Pilgrims arrive steadily, seeking blessings or simply quiet refuge from the city's relentless noise. Artists' workshops. Just beyond the abbey walls, narrow lanes host painters' and sculptors' workshops. Here, the Renaissance spirit blends with the emerging Baroque. You can almost hear the rasp of chisels shaping marble, or the hushed conversations between patrons and artists discussing commissioned portraits. A painter leans out of his window, wiping pigments from his hands while calling to an apprentice below. Inside, half-finished canvases lean against every surface, noblemen, biblical scenes, landscapes imagined and remembered. Aristocratic townhouses. Past the workshops rise elegant mansions belonging to nobles who prefer this quieter district to the political whirlwind of the Louvre. Their carriage wheels press into the soft earth as they pass, horses snorting in the chilly morning air. If you listen carefully, you might catch snippets of conversation drifting from behind garden walls, discussions about court intrigues, marriages arranged to secure alliances, or careful complaints about taxes imposed by the crown. Anecdote: the fire of 1618. Near the abbey, an elderly merchant points to a rebuilt row of houses. In 1618, a devastating fire swept through part of this quarter. Flames leapt from rooftop to rooftop, carried by a strong wind. Residents formed chains to pass buckets from the Seine, but much was lost. The memory of that night, he says, still lingers in the minds of those who lived through it. This district, though tranquil today, has survived its share of trials. Now we head north again, moving toward the political heart of Paris. The streets widen. The air seems to shift, still filled with smoke and noise, but now laced with anticipation. The presence of power is tangible. The Louvre, not yet a museum. Before us rises the Louvre, still a royal residence in the 1600s. Its facades are undergoing expansion under the direction of architects chosen by Louis XIII. Scaffolding clings to the stone walls, workers haul blocks of limestone, their chants echoing across the courtyard. This is no palace of quiet contemplation. It is a fortress of ambition. Inside, Courtiers scurry through vast halls, wearing garments of velvet and satin. Their scents, ambergris, rosewater, musk, drift through the air. The clash of rivalries is almost audible. Everyone seeks favor, everyone fears dismissal. Royal guards and politics. At the main entrance, royal guards in gleaming breastplates stand vigil. They keep watch not only for threats from outside, but for dangers within, plots, assassinations, whispered conspiracies. This century is shaped by political tension. Cardinal Richelieu works tirelessly to strengthen the monarchy, suppress dissent, and build a centralized state. His spies weave through the city, listening, reporting, manipulating. A chill breeze sweeps across the square, carrying with it the uncertainty of an age when loyalties shift as quickly as shadows at dusk. As the afternoon stretches toward evening, Paris changes once again. Homes of ordinary Parisians. Let us step briefly inside a modest home in a working-class quarter. The doorway is low, you must duck your head to enter. The single room is dimly lit by a small window and a guttering tallow candle. Smoke from the hearth clings to the rafters. A mother stirs a pot of vegetable stew while her children play with scraps of cloth and wooden toys. Outside, neighbors call to one another across the alley. Privacy is rare, walls are thin, life spills easily from home to street. Music and evening sounds. As dusk deepens, musicians gather near taverns. A fiddle, a drum, a wooden flute. Simple instruments lifting spirits after long days. Their melodies mingle with the creak of carts returning from markets and the distant toll of church bells announcing vespers. The sky is painted in soft lavender and fading gold, the rooftop silhouetted like jagged teeth against the last light of day. Night watch and curfew. Soon, the city will glow with lanterns hung along main streets, an early initiative begun under Henry IV to make Paris safer at night. Yet many alleys remain submerged in darkness. The night watch makes its rounds. Their lanterns sway with each step, sending small halos of light across the cobblestones. They call out warnings, reminding citizens of curfew hours. The city quiets, though not completely. Behind shuttered windows, voices linger, fires crackle, and secrets whisper across sleeping districts. Before we conclude this part of our journey, we must acknowledge the other side of life in the 1600s. Paris is a city of splendor, but also of hardship. The Beggars' Quarter. Near the riverbanks and in the shadow of great churches live those who own nothing but the rags they wear. Some are veterans wounded in wars, others are widows with no family to support them. Children beg with hollow eyes. The smell here is sharp, stagnant water, refuse, sickness. Yet even in these desperate corners, humanity persists. A woman shares a crust of bread with a stranger. A priest distributes alms and murmurs blessings. Hospitals and plague memories. Paris remembers plague years vividly. The outbreaks of 1606 and 1628 carved deep scars into the city's memory. At the Hôtel Dieu, overcrowded sick rooms strain under the weight of the poor who come seeking help. The infirmary smells of herbs and sweat. Nuns move quietly from bed to bed, doing what little they can. Death is never far in the 1600s. But neither is resilience. As night deepens over Paris, another world awakens, one of thieves, cutpurses, and shadows. Our pace slows, and the lantern light flickers as we move through narrower streets. The thieves' quarters. In the 1600s, certain districts, especially around the Rue de la Mortellerie and parts of the left bank, are infamous for petty crime. Here, houses lean over the streets like weary giants, their upper stories nearly touching. The air is thick with smoke from pitch-covered torches. You hear whispers, deals being made, stolen goods exchanged. Children as young as 10 run messages for criminal bands. Poverty forces many into desperate choices. A man pushes past us quickly, his hat pulled low. Moments later, a shout rises behind us, someone's purse has been cut away. The thief vanishes into the maze of alleys before the night watch can respond. Law and punishment. Justice in this century is both public and severe. Near the Place de Grève, the river breeze carries the memories of countless executions. This open square has seen hangings, brandings, and public humiliations. Crowds gather not from cruelty but from routine. Public justice is a spectacle, a reminder of order in a chaotic age. The city's jail, the Châtelet, looms nearby. Its damp cells echo with the groans of prisoners awaiting trial. Torture is sometimes used to extract confessions. The process is grim, often fatal. Yet there is a growing movement among some scholars calling for more humane reforms. Their voices are quiet now, but their echoes will shape the centuries to come. Religion permeates every aspect of Parisian life. Bells mark the hours, festivals shape the calendar, sermons stir emotions across social classes. But beneath this rhythm lies tension. Memory of the wars of religion. Though the French Wars of Religion ended in 1598 with Henry IV's Edict of Nantes, which granted limited rights to Protestants, the wounds have not fully healed. Many Parisians still view the Huguenots with suspicion. Some speak in hushed voices of the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre of 1572, a trauma that still casts long shadows. By the 1600s, most Protestants have retreated from the city, forming strongholds in other regions of France. But the memory of violence lingers in whispered tales and uneasy glances. The Catholic Revival. Inside churches such as Saint Sulpice or Saint Eustache, you feel the energy of the Catholic Revival sweeping Europe. Preachers deliver fiery homilies. Confraternities march in candlelit processions through the streets, singing solemn chants that echo against the stone walls. The air inside these sanctuaries is heavy with incense and devotion. Gold gleams from altars. Tapestries glow with scenes of saints and miracles. A human moment, a candle for the lost. We pause inside a quiet chapel where a young woman lights a candle. Her brother died in the plague 2 years earlier, she says softly. Every week she returns, whispering prayers for his soul. This simple act, one of millions performed daily, tells the story of a city seeking solace amid uncertainty. To understand Paris, we must step into the workshops where its lifeblood flows. The tanneries and smells of the city. Near the Seine's edge, the tanneries release pungent odors, rotting hides soaked in urine and lime. Workers toil with bare arms, scraping hides clean. Their skin is stained, their clothes are stiff with residue. Few envy this trade, yet leather is essential to daily life. Nearby are the dye workshops where vats of crimson, indigo, and ochre simmer like cauldrons. The air tastes metallic, steam rises in colorful plumes. The goldsmith's quarter. In contrast, the goldsmith's district near the Pont Neuf glitters with a different energy. Through open shutters, you see tiny hammers tapping gold leaf, shaping delicate chains and rings for Paris's elite. A master goldsmith shows an apprentice how to heat and bend a piece of silver. Their tools gleam in the afternoon sun, burnishers, chisels, draw plates. This is artistry born of precision. Bakeries and communal ovens. Bread is life in Paris, and bakers work tirelessly before dawn. Communal ovens glow like miniature suns within the darkness. The smell, warm, comforting, spills into the streets. A woman collects her family's loaf, wrapped in cloth, smiling with relief. Bread riots have occurred in the past. A stable supply is essential for peace. The river trade. Goods flood the city through the Seine. Firewood from Burgundy, wine from Champagne, grain from the fertile north. Barges move endlessly, their poles dipping rhythmically into the water. Life depends on these rhythms, ancient, steady, essential. Paris is not only defined by stone and politics but by time, by the turning of seasons and the celebrations that follow. Spring. In spring, the city bursts awake. Flower sellers return to the markets. Rain showers wash the grime from rooftops, leaving stones glistening like polished pewter. Young couples stroll along the Seine, exchanging shy smiles. At the May festival, garlands of flowers adorn poles in the marketplaces. Music fills the streets, the air is damp with the smell of earth and fresh blossoms. Summer. Summer brings heat and restlessness. Water sellers roam constantly. Families sleep on rooftops to escape the suffocating air below. Fires are common, the dry timbers of houses ignite easily. On warm evenings, musicians gather along the riverbanks. Their melodies drift across the water like fireflies. Autumn. Harvest season fills the city with abundance. Wine barrels arrive by the dozens, rolling over cobblestones with heavy thuds. The markets overflow with apples, pears, and chestnuts. Parisians celebrate the feast of Saint Martin, where lantern processions wind through the streets, illuminating faces carved by hard work and hope. Winter. Winter is harsh. Frost coats the rooftops like powdered sugar. The Seine sometimes freezes at its edges, trapping small boats. Families huddle together, relying on thick stews and smoky hearths for warmth. Yet in the heart of winter comes Christmas, when churches glow with candles and choirs sing hymns that resonate through cold air. For a moment, the city feels unified, rich and poor alike seeking light in the darkest months. As darkness settles once more, lanterns flicker to life. Taverns end conversation. We enter a tavern in the Rue de la Huchette. The wooden door groans as we push it open. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of roasted meat, spilled wine, and damp woolen cloaks. The fire crackles in the hearth, casting amber light across rough tables. Men and women gather to share stories. Soldiers tell tales of distant campaigns. Merchants discuss profits and losses. A poet recites verses to anyone willing to listen. Laughter rises. Arguments spark. The tavern is a refuge, messy, loud, alive. The musicians. In a corner, musicians tune a lute and viol. The melody begins softly, weaving through the chatter. Someone claps in rhythm, feet tap against the floorboards. Music binds the evening together, a counterpoint to the harshness of daily life. A final anecdote, the lantern walk. As we leave the tavern, we pass a young couple carrying a single lantern between them. They walk slowly, speaking in hushed tones. Their faces glow, half lit, half shadowed. This small moment, quiet, tender, captures the soul of the 1600s, a city of contradictions, where hardship and beauty live side by side. Night has now fully claimed Paris. A thin mist curls along the Seine, softening the edges of bridges and blurring the lanterns into golden halos that float like suspended stars. The world grows quieter, but never entirely silent. Somewhere, a dog barks. A distant lute drifts from an upper window. Church bells toll softly, marking the late hour with slow, deliberate notes. We stand near the riverbank, watching ripples shimmer beneath the moon. Barges rest in the darkness, tethered like silent beasts. Their hulls creak against the wooden posts as the current nudges them gently. Above us, the rooftops cluster like a miniature mountain range. Irregular, jagged, layered in shadow. Chimneys send up thin trails of smoke, each one carrying the memory of the hearth it rose from. This is Paris at its most intimate. A city that breathes even in sleep. The watchman's call. A watchman's voice echoes along the quay. Dormez en paix, sleep in peace. His lantern sways, casting fleeting patterns across the stones. Moments later, he disappears into a narrow passageway, swallowed by the dark. The people of Paris. Merchants, scholars, soldiers, widows, children, lie in their small rooms now. Some drift easily into rest. Others lie awake, listening to the settling timbers, worrying about debts, sickness, or the uncertain politics of the crown. And yet, amid these private struggles, the city holds its steady course, just as it has for centuries. It endures. It evolves. It dreams. Paris from above. If we could rise above the rooftops, if we could drift like the smoke, we would see the whole of the 17th century world below. The Isle de la Cité, its cathedral towers reaching for the heavens. The right bank, loud and industrious even in its slumber. The left bank, where scholars rest their weary eyes. The Marais, glowing with the soft lamplight of aristocratic salons. The Louvre, cold and vast, holding the ambitions of kings. The Seine loops through it all, a silver thread tying this tapestry together. As we prepare to leave this century behind, we pause to consider what the 1600s truly meant for Paris. A city in transformation. This was a century of rebuilding, of emergence from religious war into a new world of centralized royal authority. Henry IV's legacy shaped the early decades. Louis XIII and Richelieu pushed France toward unity, discipline, and power. Construction projects spread across the city. Bridges, squares, mansions, and churches began forming the outlines of a future capital. But it was also a century of contradiction. Beauty and hardship. Elegant squares rose just streets away from poverty-stricken alleys. Scientific curiosity blossomed while superstition still gripped many. Art flourished in noble salons even as hunger gnawed at the lower classes. This contrast gave Paris its character, its dynamism, its tension, its constant striving. The people who lived it. The 1600s belonged not only to kings and cardinals but to the millions whose names history has forgotten. Bakers rising before dawn. Monks in quiet cloisters. Scholars arguing in Latin. Mothers comforting sick children. Soldiers marching through muddy streets. Merchants bargaining over salt or cloth. Young lovers exchanging glances in crowded markets. Their lives gave the century its heartbeat. They built the city not with marble or proclamations, but with daily persistence. The echoes we still hear. Walk through modern Paris and echoes of the 1600s remain. In the stones of the Pont Neuf. In the symmetry of the Place de Vosges. In the courtyards of the Marais. In the quiet corners near the Seine. In the bells of Notre-Dame. The city remembers. Return now with me to the riverbank one last time. A soft wind stirs, carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp leaves. The moon glides between clouds, painting silver lines along the dark water. Paris lies before us, a patchwork of dreams, fears, hopes, and ambitions, contained within its walls and reflected endlessly in its river. We walk slowly across the Pont Neuf. Our footsteps echo on the stones polished by decades of travelers before us. The equestrian statue of Henry IV stands tall and immobile, as though guarding the centuries that follow. From here, the city seems timeless. Look once more toward the cathedral. Its silhouette rises sharply against the night sky, its towers standing like ancient sentinels over the sleeping island. Listen. The bells begin to toll midnight. Their sound rolls through the air. Deep, solemn, and resonant, carrying not just time but memory itself. Final reflection. Paris in the 1600s was imperfect. Crowded. Unequal. Sometimes dangerous. But it was also wondrous, alive with invention, faith, struggle, art, ambition, and humanity. A city becoming itself. And now, as we return to our own century, we carry with us the faint glow of its lanterns, the murmur of its river, and the heartbeat of the people who once walked these same streets. Thank you for joining this journey. This quiet walk through a city suspended in time. If you enjoyed exploring the Paris of the 1600s, consider joining us again. Past World Tours travels through centuries, across kingdoms, and into moments long forgotten. There are many more worlds waiting to be rediscovered. And if you wish to accompany us on future voyages, you may subscribe so you never miss the next window into the past. Until then, may the echoes of history stay with you. And may your steps always find their way back to another story.